All right. Good morning. Thanks for coming. Um, Manish Goyal. I lead our AI practice in IBM services. A little bit of background prior to this role, and I've been in this role for about 3 or 4 months now. But prior to that, for the last 6, 7 years, I was leading our AI and machine learning, data science product teams at IBM. So uh, I've had this unique perspective of building products, and then on the services side, helping customers, apply AI to a variety of different problems. So from both perspectives. And what I wanted to do today is sort of walk you through, some practical guidance that we have come up, based on all of the engagements that we've been doing with customers, right? And what we have learned where they struggle with sort of applying AI and scaling AI in the enterprise. So we distill it down into sort of some practical steps that folks can use to guide the discussions, to guide the approach to taking and applying AI in the enterprise. I know throughout this conference there's been a lot of numbers thrown out, in terms of the AI opportunity. And the reason those numbers come out is it is very real, the impact that AI is going to have on the economy in general, right? And McKinsey put out this study, I think, earlier this week. They did a detailed modeling of the impact of AI on the global economy. And the numbers are really just staggering, right? So they project, and they're looking out 10, 12 years, right? So they're projecting 13 trillion of economic activity across the globe, and GDP that is 16% higher cumulatively than today. And what that means is, they're talking about 1.2% of additional GDP growth per year driven by AI. If you compare this to sort of other major technology shifts, right? If you look at what steam engines did in terms of the GDP impact on GDP, it was 0.3% a year. If you look at what robotics did, right, in the 1990s in terms of manufacturing, that was 0.4% of GDP growth per year. And if you look at sort of in the 2000s, right, the internet technology era, there was 0.6% of impact of GDP per year. And this has double that. So truly staggering across all industries across the globe. And clearly, right, if enterprises are not looking at this opportunity, right, whatever industry you might be in, if you're not considering thinking about how AI is going to impact your industry, how you can use the technology to drive innovation in your products, services, operations, you're going to be in real big trouble, right? Now, I shared this, this chart earlier today during the keynote presentation, right? And this is sort of our interviews with 5,000 executives across the globe, across all different industries, right? Trying to understand sort of where they are in their AI journey, right? And again, right, no surprises here. Everybody says that they are either considering or doing something with AI, right? But when we look at sort of, okay, where are you really in the AI journey, right? Most of them are in the early phases, right? Very few of them are in the implementing, operating, or optimizing AI systems. And when we compare that, between the outperformers and the rest, right? Outperformers are essentially companies who are outperforming their peer group in revenue growth and profitability, right? The difference in terms of where they are in their AI journey or in the later phases is quite stark. And what our research shows, right, looking at this data and the survey, is that if the current trends continue, right, this separation between the leaders and the laggards is going to continue to become larger, and the implications of that for the rest of the companies is actually quite stark, right? They're going to be in serious trouble if they don't pick up and start doing something with the technology, right? And driving business value through it. And when we looked at sort of where the enterprises are focusing their efforts on, right? What the changes that we have seen, right? We do the survey every other year. So for the AI specific one, right? We've done one in 2016. We did earlier this year, and when we look at the data, right? They're getting more specific in terms of where they are, putting their bets, right? Where they see business value coming out, right? And primarily, right? It is around, right? If you look at the top few reasons, it's all around customers, right? And driving customer satisfaction, customer retention, and we also see a big jump in sort of the percentage increase in driving down operational costs. So it's they're looking at a variety of reasons. The top reasons continue to be about driving top line growth, right? And again, it's the way we look at it, and what the data suggests is, with the technology, with machine learning and AI, and the improvements that have happened over the last few years, right? You suddenly can go after a lot of the data that these enterprises have about their customers and their customer interactions that previously just weren't possible to use to drive insights, to change that customer experience, to change the products and services that customers were expecting. Now, when we asked them, saying, okay, great, right? You all want to do something with AI, or are saying you're doing something with AI. What are the challenges that you're running up against, right? And the top challenge continues to be around the lack of skills, right? And it's a combination of lack of technical skills, right? The normal refrain is, can't find enough data scientists, right? Everybody will say that, and that's true, right? We're not disputing that. Those skills are in short supply, and it's a challenge. But the other thing that's come out on, in our interactions is, in addition to the data scientists and the data engineers, the challenge that these companies are having is having individuals who understand both business and AI, right? So they can bridge what is it that we should be focusing on, how to actually apply the technology to solve business problems and to drive value. There's a variety of other things that sort of pop up, especially between the survey that we had done 2 years back and the survey this year, right? And the two that sort of I'll highlight is regulatory concerns, right? I mean, I think everybody's heard enough of what's happened with data, right? And the impact that's had on a variety of social issues. In our mind, right? If enterprises are going to be focused on changing how they're serving customers, the experience, etc., they're going to use even more of customer data to personalize that experience, not only on the customer service side, but also on the inside of the product or the service. And having a real understanding of how data privacy is managed, right, is crucial. Now, coming to data, right? Again, throughout the conference, you've heard about variety of commentary around data and how crucial it is. Clearly, right? You can't really have and use AI if you don't have a handle on data. Now, in our experience, and this comes both from my experience working with customers in my current role, as well as the products that I was building in helping enterprises manage their data. This is a real struggle for a lot of enterprises, right? If you look at the disparate systems that they have, and what they need, and they have a lot of data, right? But is it in a usable form? Can they get it to a way that they can actually use to feed the AI systems, right? And this is where they really struggle. And so our view is the differentiation, right, between the outperformers and the rest is going to come from establishing what we call these data supply chains, right? the ability to locate, transform, and provide that data, move that data to wherever these AI systems sit, right? And so, whether you're building your own machine learning models, right, and putting them into production, or you're using, embedded, productized AI, right, which is another trend that's happening, right? Either way, you need to feed those systems with data, right? And having this data supply chain built out is really crucial. So if you look at, if you think about this backdrop, right, we've tried to sort of distill, how enterprises should think about, scaling AI within the enterprise into sort of four key steps, right? And they sound and look, what you would expect, right? And I'll dive a little bit deeper into each one of them, and then I will spend a bit of time actually talking through customer examples, because that's when it really becomes real. So the four steps are obviously strategy, right? I mean, just don't forget the why. And there's too many times where customers think, oh, I went to that conference, AI is a happening thing, I got to get some AI for myself, right? And and that direction goes down, and then say, okay, the boss asked for some AI, I'm going to go do some AI, right? So again, it's just crucial to be very clear in terms of what business value you're going after. That's sort of the strategy part. We just talked about data. There's no AI without data. I'll talk about what we say is avoiding AI tourism, right? And this is, again, it goes back to trying to dabble in a lot of things. Go, yeah, I did AI, right? But it has zero impact on your business. And finally, change. This is, most tech people don't care about this, but this is one of the things that in our experience is what makes a difference in actual adoption and the actual value being derived. So let's just go through each one of these very quickly, and then I'll spend the rest of the time talking about customer examples. Again, whether you're doing a digital transformation, whatever you're doing, right, just be very clear of the business value that you're trying to achieve, right? Just be very clear of, this is a problem that I'm trying to solve, right? And lay that out and have everything that you're doing, right, whether it be, proof of concepts, whether it be pilots, et cetera, don't do them sort of in the abstract, but tied to a clear value statement that you're going after. And the other thing that I would sort of call out here in terms of the strategy, right, is you need to think of this as a much more enterprise-wide approach. What I mean by that is it's got to be top-down, bottoms-up, right? Everybody's got to be doing and focused on the same thing, right? You need to make sure that the CIO, the CTO, the CEO, right, the CDO, they're all on the same page in terms of what you're trying to achieve here, right? Otherwise, the CDO is going off doing their own data stuff that's related or not related to things that you're trying to achieve through the AI strategy, right? Now, on data, there are a couple of points I want to make, right? So we talked about the data supply chain, but I want to start with, a lot of times companies believe that I can't do anything because I just don't have the data, right? And there are a lot of things actually that could be achieved, right? That you can try out without sort of waiting for all of your data to be cleansed and be in the proper form, because that's going to take a real long time if that's what you're going to wait on doing. That doesn't mean that you don't want to have a strong approach towards that. But I'll just take an example, right? We're working with a trucking company, right? Low margin transportation business, and they wanted to build a new revenue stream. And as we worked through this with them, right, they came up with a really cool idea, right? So they had location data, as part of their trucking infrastructure, and they combined it with some licensed data to come up with advertising on the side of the trucks, right? So, and then using other techniques and other data sources to, depending on the weather, et cetera, what advertisements should be shown on the side of the truck, and generated a new revenue stream through it. Now, most of the data that they used was not data that they had in the enterprise. They used their own location data, but then they combined it with a bunch of other, licensed data that they picked up. Now, I've talked about sort of the making data the cornerstone of your delivery strategy. This is about creating those data supply chains, right? This is about making sure that you have a very clear idea of how you can locate, transform, and deliver the data to whatever AI systems are. Now, a lot of companies have data lake initiatives, right, or data swamp initiatives, depending on how you want to think about your data lakes. But one of the things that we have found that is really effective is some investment in data catalogs, right, machine learning data catalogs. And that can be a way of really, depending on, irrespective of where your data is, providing all of your data users, right, and it may be data scientists, data engineers, machine learning software folks, or just your business users, having a same view of what is available, right? And this can be a really nice unifying message, right, and something to collaborate on between the CDO, the CIO, right, all the business functions, because it has a dramatic impact on how the data that the enterprise has can be used. So we have found that to be a very effective way to feed and to create that supply chain that I was referring to. And again, I can't say enough about having data privacy or data privacy as part of your core data strategy, right? Because increasingly, you may get everything else right, but if you don't have a handle on this, you're not going to be able to put stuff in production because of the tremendous legal impacts that you might be exposed to. So it can't be an afterthought. Data privacy has to be a core part of your data strategy. On the execution front, you have to start with scale in mind, right? We're not saying that don't do pilots or POCs. Obviously, that's a way to get started, right? But keep, as you're doing that, do that with an intention that you're actually going to scale that pilot, right? Now, obviously, there are ones that are going to be failed and ones that are going to be successful, but you have to keep that in mind. And again, you don't do it in isolation, right? This is the other problem that we have, right? Which is, this group decided to just do it for, customer service without having any idea of what else is going on, right? And you have a patchwork of efforts going on, right? That makes it really hard to go after the overall business value that the enterprise is looking for. And so, sort of having a, great linkage between sort of everything that you're doing from an execution standpoint tied back to the business value strategy is critical. All right, let me talk a little bit about change, right? And it's not just about missing skills and talent. Talent is obviously a key part of it, right? But what we have learned and what we've experienced with customers who have been really successful with this is that they address the skill gap issue with hiring, in a variety of ways, right? We're collaborating with universities to have a pipeline of new talent coming in with skills that they don't have or can't find easily, right? So they're doing a variety of things in that fashion. But what they're doing is sort of much more holistic, right? They're looking at that. They're looking at reskilling, retraining programs for their existing employees. And then they're really looking at, aligned with their business strategy and the business value, and if their AI programs are successful, right, what is that going to mean for how people work, right? As you introduce more human and machine sort of interactions in just how you do work, right? What is the implication of that to the employees and just how work is done? So they're looking at process reengineering, workflow redesign as part of this change. And they're putting dedicated change management teams in place, right? And we've seen this repeatedly where pilots are successful because you're working with a control group, right? And they're all invested in, hey, this is a cool new thing we're going to try, and everybody knows why you're doing it, and they use the system, right? But as you roll that out to the broader population, right, if you're not managing that change, you're not managing that adoption, right, you don't get the business value. And this is many times something that folks don't consider as part of the overall program that they're trying to drive. So let me spend some more time that I didn't get at the keynote, talk through customer examples. So I'll start with Vodafone this time because I spoke about Credit Mutual, and I can come back to Credit Mutual later. So Vodafone, this was a classic. We want to redesign our customer experience. This was Vodafone UK, but we're working with Vodafone in multiple countries. So they created a virtual agent called Toby, right? As part of redesigning, across all of their product lines, they wanted to have a virtual agent to help customers resolve issues, etc. And as they were building it out, designing it with us, they got a lot of resistance from their customer service folks saying, hey, this is going to take away my job, right? Why should I work with this, et cetera, et cetera. And they took a very deliberate approach to helping them understand what this is going to, that it's really not just replacement of jobs, but it's augmenting the work that they're doing. And as they started piloting and rolling this out, they found that the satisfaction level of their customer reps actually went up. And we've seen this across customers, right? That this interplay of human plus machine in most of the augmented scenarios and use cases actually raises the satisfaction of the humans working with the technology, right? And so what they found is the customer reps were suddenly finding themselves freed up from a lot of sort of repetitive questions that they had to deal with and answer for their customers. And they moved to a much more of a case management, more problem resolution at a higher level, right? Which was far more satisfying for them than what they had to deal with, right? Which was a lot of same thing again and again, right? So this is something that we've seen sort of repeat across customers. But the impact for them was, for Vodafone specifically, was that they have excellent NPS on Toby, the virtual agent, but the agent satisfaction has gone up tremendously as well. So again, the impact of this, they got the business value they were looking for, right? And they actually, right, really got the change management right by focusing and being deliberate about it. I don't know if any of you here sort of attended Rachel Reckard's talk on Autodesk and what they've done with Ava, which is their virtual agent, sort of a similar thing that they were trying to do with what Vodafone did. But Autodesk, they started working with us when they were transitioning from sort of the old seat-based model to a more SaaS offering. And as part of that whole transformation, right, they realized that they needed to invest more on customer service, and they wanted to offer it sort of 24/7, right, and really dramatically reduce the time it was taking for the agents to respond to a lot of customer queries. And so they started with Ava. They actually started with Otto, which was the predecessor for Ava, because Otto was sort of very, it just did one thing, and that was it, right? But then as they sort of evolved their strategy around how a virtual agent can help support their customers, they really took a very holistic view of how they designed Ava, right? Why they chose it to be a female. They changed from sort of a static persona to uh, uh, um, somebody who actually has facial expressions as you're interacting with Ava. They did a lot of sort of research into why that is more effective. And the results are actually stunning, right? And actually, I have it wrong on my chart in terms of the number of interactions that they're doing a month. It's 3x based on her presentation yesterday. So I need to go update our case study around this. So it's been really great to watch them sort of build out Ava, right? And yes, they started with addressing sort of the more repetitive questions. But as they've evolved Ava to sort of handle more and more things, they found that their own customer service reps were using Ava to find answers, right? And then they turned that into saying, okay, right? So customers have accepted this, right? Because the way they did it is not, again, taking out other channels of for customers to contact Autodesk. It was just one other option. So they didn't take away the phone or open a case kind of models here. They just listed all three, saying, hey, you can talk to Ava, right? Wait time is 0. Or you can get on the phone, wait time is 5 minutes or whatever, right? Or you can open a case and we'll get back to you in 12 hours, right? So it's a combination of sort of, again, this is change management. You're nudging your own customers to make a choice, right? You're not taking choice away. You're giving them an additional choice. But it also drove them to clearly, okay, I'll give it Ava a shot. If she's useful, I'll continue working with that. And again, they measure Ava's NPS scores the same way that they measure their agents, exactly the same questions. So they can compare, right, whether the Ava is being effective in resolving customer issues and the satisfaction customers have with the thing. And again, they're doing, I think, 100,000 plus inquiries with Ava a month, right? 40 plus unique use cases, and most importantly, right, the time to resolve issues went down from hours, I think it was 15 hours or so, to 5. Actually, what she said yesterday was less than 2 minutes. So I got to update that as well. So really impactful results for them. But again, it was a journey. It was fascinating to watch her describe sort of how the avatar for Ava moved, but also what they did along the journey. And it wasn't like they've been doing this for years, right? The first use case they did, they invested about 9 months. The next 40 they did in 3 months, right? So once they figured out, okay, it works, it was pretty rapid in terms of how easily they were able to do this. So I've talked about Vodafone and Autodesk. These are obviously customer-facing applications of AI, right? I'll go back to Credit Mutual and then come to Woodside. So Credit Mutual, as I mentioned, right, is a French bank, right? And their problem was really about they got 20,000 advisors. They are the face of the bank to customers, right? But they were getting just a tremendous volume of online inquiries that had to be triaged and responded to. And so the advisor's time was being spent doing that instead of actually face-to-face with customers, helping them with their problems or helping upsell, cross-sell more of Credit Mutual's products for them. And they decided not to go the route of Autodesk and Vodafone by putting out an AI system for their customers. They said, we're going to help our advisors first, right? And they built a knowledge system for them that can easily answer questions. They did some stuff that helps triage the large volume of emails, automatically classify, respond, all kinds of things to handle the volume so that they could free up the time for their advisors to spend time with customers. Yeah. I will at the end if you don't mind. Yeah. 5 more minutes and I'll wrap and then open it up for discussions. Where was I? So So in this case, right, when they started this with us a year and a half, 2 years back, right, when they announced this to their advisors, right, and this is France, right, labor unions are pretty strong there, right, they halted the project, saying, this is going to take away jobs, right, we're not going to do this, kind of a thing, right? The head of the labor union, all kinds of things. For a month, everything comes to a halt, right? We explain what's going to happen, etc. Then, they allow us to do this again, right? We do the pilot, they get some good results. I talked about, they scale it out from the pilot to, larger production deployment, right? They stumble because they don't see the effects they were seeing in the pilot, right? They get their act together by saying, okay, what's happening is the control group's working fine, but the rest of the advisors are going back to their old ways of looking at the 5 systems, et cetera. We're getting no gains out of that, right? So they were deliberate. They now actually have a dedicated change management team because they've expanded what they're doing across all product lines, across everything. So they have a large change management team dedicated to the effort of helping drive adoption of the system that they're putting out, both internally and now they're actually shifting externally as well. So the results that they saw were dramatic. They're very, very, very extremely happy with what they're seeing because it did free up the advisors' time. So they were spending more time actually talking and resolving issues with the customers. Customer satisfaction went up. The advisor satisfaction went up. The cross-sell upsell went up dramatically because the advisors were freed up to actually understand and do that, right? The most fun part of the story, though, is 2 or 3 months back, we had a big event in France, and we had the head of Credit Mutual and the head of the labor union on stage talking about how satisfied the advisors were with the AI system. And so again, another story of sort of, in the use cases, and again, I'm not claiming that AI is not going to displace jobs. It is going to change jobs, and that's the whole point of managing that. But in most use cases where you're augmenting the work that humans do with machines, right? In general, what we have seen is that the satisfaction level of the humans actually goes up if you build the systems right. All right, so last story is on Woodside. As I mentioned, they're an oil and gas company out of Australia. And the problem that they're facing, and this is sort of common across this industry, is that they have a lot of really senior engineers who work on the oil rigs, et cetera, who are retiring. And as they're retiring, they're walking out of the rigs with all of that knowledge in their head, right? So as Woodside was bringing on new talent, they realized this problem that they were going to have in a short time, and they decided to do something about it. So they built an AI expert system to help, one, to capture the knowledge of their senior engineers, but to also aid the new folks coming in to sort of come up to that level of expertise as quickly as possible, right? And what they found in terms of results was that these new employees were earlier spending 80% of the time sort of researching the problem, right, and 20% of the time fixing it. As they have rolled this out, right, and fine-tuned the system, right, not only are they capturing the knowledge of the workers, right, the senior engineers who are about to retire, but they also flipped the time, that these people were taking to actually research the problems and how much time they were able to actually fix it. So I'll wrap with sort of, on the 4 points, right? Again, from a strategy perspective, just be clear. Don't forget why you're applying AI. Don't do it just because it sounds cool. It's not going to work out. Data is going to continue to be a challenge, right? So, have a deliberate approach and strategy towards it. And avoid AI tourism, right? And this just ties back to your strategy and the approach towards it. And change, right? You got to change, we call it heads, hearts, and hands, to actually drive the value, right? It's a really critical part of what you're doing. So with that, thank you very much. And I don't know how much time. I got 5 minutes for questions. Thank you.
You mentioned all the different strategies, we're using AI.
Mm-hmm.
Are all the different companies, did they do it homegrown or did they outsource? And was it always to the same company? I'm just trying to see.
So
is there a variety of different
yeah,
AI?
yeah. So I mean, the customer that I chose, obviously working with IBM. So in almost all cases, in fact, for all those 4, they were using IBM Watson and our AI capabilities. In many cases, they were using IBM services to help them actually build the system, right? In the case of Autodesk, they're doing it on their own, and then they have outsourced it to some other company, but they're using our AI platform, right? Woodside, we helped build it for them through IBM services on our AI platform. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, my pitch wasn't really about our AI platform, right? We think it's just as good as or better than Microsoft or Google, but that's not the point, right? And the point here is, you can have the building blocks from a variety of places, right? Some are better, easier to use, etc. Right? You make your due diligence and you pick that, but it's sort of the holistic approach, right, that is needed to actually get to the business value. Yes, please.
Your Woodside example, what was the mechanism of capturing the knowledge from the experts?
So it is a combination of things. It is a combination of sort of the traditional manuals and procedures and processes that the AI system sort of ingested and understood and created meaning from. But it's also sort of building a system where the experts were using and training that, right, and providing. So it was a human in the loop, right? Almost all the examples I've taken have a human in the loop, right? These are not automated systems that automatically sort of have that level of expertise to drive this, right? Now, as technology evolves, it gets easier and easier, right, to automate some things. But in all of these examples, it is human in the loop. Yep.
How long is a typical engagement from initiation to deployment?
It varies. Right? It really does vary. But you can get to something very usable now between 4 to 6 months. Now, again, it's very hard to answer without a very specific scope that you're talking about. But like I took the example of Autodesk, right? They spent a lot of time for the first use case, right? They took 9 months now. That was also two years back, right? 2 years of technology. Our platform has evolved dramatically, but they were able to go from that one use case to the remaining 40 use cases in 3 months' time. So, yeah.
Do you guys help with like the machine learning opportunity assessment within the organization, or is that something that?
Yeah, no. So that's part of what we, one of the things that we do as part of IBM services, is to we can come and absolutely help you assess the maturity of your organization and help you prioritize where you should focus on first, etc. So absolutely, yeah.
I'm curious if you could roughly characterize the percentage of these projects that are really sort of core ML versus group-driven or more traditional app development.
Well, I mean, so all of these had elements of all of that, right? So there's core AI piece that's sort of driving a lot of the value, right? So in all these cases, you're obviously doing something that was not previously possible without AI machine learning, right? But to deliver the full value, right, you had to do a bunch of data stuff, right? You had to do a bunch of app development stuff, right? So Ava, for example, is an app that Autodesk built. It's powered, right? The inside of Ava is Watson, right? But they built the app on their own, right? And they're embedding it in a variety of ways. So it's a combination of things, I can't sort of give you a split of how much is which, but it's a combination of things. Let me know if I'm out of time. Okay, one additional question if anybody has anything. Yeah.
How long did the Woodside example take?
So Woodside, I believe the initial engagement was done in about 9 to 12 months, because in some cases it becomes very industry specific, right? It's oil and gas, health and safety for oil and gas kind of stuff, right? So, and this was also a couple of years back that we started with them, and again, as technology has evolved, right, the time it would take to do the same thing now would probably be less. All right. Thank you all for your time. Hopefully this was useful.